Hi, this is Chuck Kuntz. I'm the person on the left, and I'm going to be your instructor for this class. And in this first module, we're going to take a look at the file system as it relates to the Windows operating system. So this is one of the most fundamental things that a person needs to know in order to use a computer effectively. And the reason for that is one of the things that you typically do with a computer is create documents, and when you create documents, normally you want to save them, and if you know how to use the file system, then you're able to save the documents in a way that facilitates what you're doing in the real world, and also allows you to retrieve the files and access them conveniently in the future. And of course, the alternative is, if you don't know how to use the file system correctly, you're apt to lose files and have a frustrating experience. So how do you get to the file system? Well, when you boot up a computer with a Windows operating system, you'll see a desktop. And of course, the desktop can be configured a variety of ways, to include, putting wallpaper on the background, as I've done here. This desktop is actually a folder in the file system, and it's not real apparent because it's what you see initially, and it seems like the very first thing, but actually it's just a glorified folder in the file system where you can save files and where you can save other folders. So how do I get to the file system? Well, if you go to the Start menu, choose Computer. It's going to open a window that allows you to see the storage devices that you have access to from your computer. Now, I'm using a Macintosh computer that's been configured so that the Macintosh OS is on one partition and Windows is on the other. So, it's going to look probably a little bit different than yours, but this Boot Camp Drive C icon is representing the part of the disk drive that Microsoft Windows knows about. And for all practical purposes in this class, this is my hard drive. So if I open the hard drive, it takes me to the highest level in the hierarchical file system. And if you look up here, there's a little breadcrumb trail that sort of shows you where you're at the current point in time when you're using the file system. And if you don't like that view, which I don't really care much for it, you can click on the icon here, and it'll transform it to what's called the DOS path notation. And this is what I would really prefer. I think it's a little easier to read once you understand how it works. So in this DOS path notation, the highest level in this hierarchical structure is denoted as C:\\. C indicates that this is the internal hard drive, and the :\/ indicates that this is the gateway or root directory. And from the root directory, I can get to any other folder, and I'll use the terms folder and directory interchangeably, so be prepared for that. But from the root directory, then you can get to any other folder in the file system. And you'll notice I have a folder called Chuck, and that's one that I created. I have another folder called Temp Workspace, again one that I created. And then there's some folders here that were created as a result of installing software. So for instance, Windows, within this folder there are other folders, and within those folders are the files that make up the Windows operating system, or the base software on the computer. There's a folder called Program Files, and if I were to open it, I would see lots of folders, and within those folders I would see the files that are used to store other programs that I have installed on my computer, like Microsoft Office and Camtasia Studio and so forth. So all the data that I create, when I create a word processing document or a spreadsheet, or even if I store pictures, that would represent data. All the data that I create is stored long-term in the file system, and all the programs that I install are stored long-term in the file system. And so, it's real important that I learn how to use this properly. Now, going back to this folder called Chuck, every computer that I have, I just, when it's new, when I start using it, I create a folder called Chuck. And that's where I keep everything that I create personally. So if I were to open this folder, you'd see that there's a folder called AU. Since I teach at Anderson University, anything that I create that's related to my job is going to be stored either in this folder or in folders that are nested within it. And I have personal life, and have pictures and music and things like that. I keep that stored in a folder called personal. And actually, again, on all these folders, I tend to create folders within them, or nested folders, to keep things further organized. So just to give you an example, in my AU folder, I'll switch this over to DOS path notation. So from the root directory, I have a folder called Chuck. Within Chuck, I have this folder called AU, where everything that I create relative to my job is stored in here. And you'll notice that there's a folder called Department. I'm chair of the Computer Science Department. So aside from my teaching, there are documents that I create just for the purpose of administering the department, and I keep those in there. So you'll see that I've got 2014-15 class schedules, and I've got assessment reports and all kinds of things. Now, this folder structure is hierarchical, and I want to show you what I mean by that by looking at a diagram that I created using the drawing tools in Microsoft Word. So it's a hierarchical file system. There is a gateway directory called the root directory at the very top, and if I use that DOS path notation that I described previously, the C indicates that it's my internal hard drive, and again the // indicates it's the topmost gateway root directory. From the root directory, I can go anywhere to any folder, and each of these rectangles represent a folder within the file system. And I didn't draw all the folders that exist. I just drew something that was somewhat representative of the folders that I have. So you're going to recognize some of these names because as I opened folders in the actual file system, you remember there was a folder called Chuck, and within Chuck I have a folder for Afghanistan where I do some consulting work, and I have a folder called Personal where I store things that relate to my private life, and then I have a folder called AU, and since I teach, I need to keep track of grades, so I have spreadsheets here that where I have grades archived, and I have a student working on a Visual Basic for Applications independent study, and his work is in there. So it's highly organized, and if at some point in time I get a little concerned about what happens if I drop this computer and break it or lose it, how can I have a copy of everything so that I can recover from some kind of disaster? What I do is I plug into the Anderson University Computer Science Department network, and I simply copy this folder called Chuck from my laptop to our departmental server, and I have it then backed up on that computer. And backing up everything that is important to me, all the documents that I create, is as simple as moving or copying this one single folder from this computer to some other computer. So again, I just wanted to show you just how easy it can be. Now, you may wonder, how do you create these folders? Well, you create a folder from within some folder in the file system. And initially, I created Chuck from // or the root directory. So let me actually go to the file system, and from the start menu, I'll choose computer again. And here's my hard drive. I'm at the root directory of the hard drive. If I want to create a folder, and I'm going to call this folder demo, then a way of creating it is within this window, within white space. I can't do it on top of some other object, but in white space, I can right click and should get a pop-up menu, and I should have a folder, an option to create a new folder. So I can do it that way. A new folder appears. I can name this whatever I want to, so I'll just call this demo folder. And it's as easy as that. And if I want to copy that folder somewhere, again, I can right click on the folder. I get a number of options to include copy. If I want to get rid of the folder, I have an option to delete. If I want to change the name, just the label on the folder, I can rename it. Doesn't do anything to the contents of the folder. If I want to snoop around a bit, I can check the properties of the folder and see how much is stored within it, when it was created, and so forth. And then a more advanced topic would be the options that I have using what are called NTFS, or New Technology File System, as it stands for, NTFS permissions. So I can set security on this and make the folder accessible to some people and inaccessible to others. And that's a topic that we cover in other computer science coursework, but not in this course. Okay, so I'm going to close that up. And that's the basic idea of creating a folder. And what you want to do, I'm going to delete this folder. I really don't want that there, so I'll go ahead and delete it. Oops, now I made a little mistake there. When I executed that delete command, I had the name highlighted, and so what it did was it deleted the name of the folder, but not the folder itself. So I'm going to strike the enter key, and what I really need to do is to point at the folder icon itself and then choose delete, and that'll get rid of this folder structure. Okay, so I want to go back to the diagram, take a look at it again. You see how to create folders. The idea is that you have to consider how you use your computer, and what is the best organizational scheme for storing things. So in my life, I like to store things based upon, I guess, where I use the computer. So I use the computer at work, I use the computer at home, and I use the computer sometimes on the road or around the world. And for other people, a better structure might be to organize folders by maybe years. So maybe it would make sense to have a folder labeled 2014, another folder 2013, another folder 2012, if you need to store documents that are in some way time sensitive. But that's the story on the file system, how you create folders, how you organize folders, and once you get used to doing this, then it makes it easy to manage. Now, one last thing, I have shown you how to access the file system from the operating system itself. Let's take another look here at how we would use the file system from the application perspective. So I have this folder called AU. I have this folder called personal. I'll use my personal folder just to demonstrate with. Okay, and so I'm currently using Microsoft Word, and let's say for whatever reason I want to save this file in. I don't put it in there. I'll trash that. I'll put it over here in this folder called Afghanistan. Right. Let's say that I want to save this in this folder called Afghanistan for whatever reason. If while I'm in my application, if I go to the File pull-down menu, I have an option for Save As. If I choose the Save As option, it will bring up a dialog box that provides me a window into the file system, and there will be some folder that is currently active, and it's the wrong folder here. So what I'm going to do is click on the Drive C folder, and now I am looking at this point in the file system. I'm sorry, I told you wrong. I am in the root directory, and so I can see the folder called Chuck, I can see the folder called Temp Workspace, and so forth. So I'm going to open the folder called Chuck with a double click, and there's my Afghanistan folder, and I'll go ahead and rename this something. I'll name the file DUD. Okay, so normally you want to choose a file name that's descriptive, that somehow describes the contents of the file, and I'll tell it to save. And at that point, if I were to go to the Start menu, Computer, Drive C, open the Chuck folder, open the Afghanistan folder, I would see the file dud.docx. Okay, that's so that docx is the file name extension. DUD's the file name, docx is the file name extension. And the operating system looks at the file name extensions and associates the file with some application. So if it sees docx, it knows that that's a Word document. If it sees txt, it knows that's a document that's associated with Notepad, and xlsx is a file name extension that's associated with Excel. So I'll mention more about that later on, but in the file system, we save files within folders, and we can save folders within folders if necessary, and also when we save files within folders, we give files descriptive file names, and then usually let the application assign the file name extension. Because likely, if I ever wanted to access that file again in the future, I would want to open it up again in the software that was used to create it. So that's important. I want to go through that drill one more time, though. So again, if I'm using an application and I need to interact with the file system, I go to the File pull-down menu. I would choose Save As if I want to have the option to direct where this file needs to be saved. Otherwise, if I choose Save, it's going to just save the current state of the file right back in the file structure that was originally opened. And if I choose Save As, I'll get a Save As dialog box. What I didn't show you was that sometimes it'll suggest the wrong folder on the wrong drive, and so it may be necessary that you come over here and make a selection from the options that you have in this leftmost list. So I could have chosen Drive C from here, then followed that by opening folders from the root directory clear down to whatever folder I actually wanted to save in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close that up by canceling it, and hopefully that gives you an idea of how the file system works and how important it is, because it's your best friend if you know how to use it, and it's your worst enemy if you don't.